The sharp, heavy snip of metal shears echoed through the dressing room, startlingly loud in the oppressive silence. When Caius pushed open the walnut doors of his walk-in closet, he was greeted by a sight capable of suffocating any obsessive perfectionist on the spot. This had always been the most sacred and meticulously ordered space in the estate. Dozens of bespoke suits hung in flawless rows, arranged according to color, fabric weight, and season, each garment separated by precisely 2 inches. Every detail reflected an almost pathological devotion to order. Now that perfection had been ripped apart, Albie sat cross-legged in the middle of an expensive Persian rug, as if he owned the place. A pair of heavy steel tailoring shears rested in his hands. Mischief glittered brightly in his blue eyes. Beside him hung one of Caius's favorite charcoal cashmere 3-piece suits, or rather, what remained of it. The sleeves, trouser legs, and hem had all been brutally sliced into dozens of long, narrow strips. The elegant suit now resembled some bizarre bohemian costume draped in swaying fringe. One gust of wind, and the $10,000 garment would flutter like a decorative wind chime. "Oh, you're back, boss." Albie brushed a few bits of cashmere lint from his lap and flashed a brilliant smile, entirely devoid of remorse. "Don't look at me like that. I just thought your wardrobe was painfully boring. A little fringe adds movement, gives your walk a bit more flow, don't you think?" Caius stood in the doorway. His dark eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. The temperature in the room seemed to plummet. Anyone familiar with Caius knew exactly what that expression meant. It was the warning sign that appeared moments before something unfortunate happened to the person responsible. Albie tightened his grip around the steel shears. His spine stiffened. The self-destructive instinct that had followed him his entire life screamed inside his head. "Go on. Hit me. Shoot me. Tear apart the broken thing standing in front of you." Yet Caius did none of those things. He simply stared at him. Beneath the icy stillness of those black eyes, anger churned like a storm trapped beneath frozen water. But instead of erupting, it settled into something deeper, something impossible to read. Then Caius walked forward. He didn't take the shears away. Instead, he crouched beside the lowest drawer of a cabinet and pulled it open. A crisp metallic clink broke the silence. From inside, he lifted a pair of sterling silver handcuffs. Albie instinctively tried to retreat. Too slow. A gloved hand closed around his wrist with terrifying precision. The grip was as strong as steel, yet somehow avoided putting pressure on the most vulnerable bones and joints. Click. The cuffs locked shut. Albie squeezed his eyes closed, expecting pain. It never came. Instead, warmth and surprising softness wrapped around his wrists. His eyes flew open. The interior of the silver cuffs had been lined with luxurious black mink fur. The restraints were secure, pinning both hands firmly behind his back, but the padding prevented even the slightest abrasion. "Hey, what is this?" Albie twisted experimentally, the chain rattling softly behind him. "Caius, don't tell me you have some weird hobby. Are you planning to keep me locked in the closet like a decorative doll?" Caius looked down at him. Long fingers caught Albie's chin, lifting it with effortless authority. "You have too much free time, Albie." His voice was calm, dangerously calm. "Since you're so energetic, you'll spend today sitting beside me." His grip tightened slightly. "And you'll remain perfectly still while listening to an entire afternoon of meetings." With that, he released him. Ignoring every protest that followed, Caius simply hooked a hand around the chain between the cuffs and led him out of the dressing room like an unruly stray cat. Half an hour later, the estate's top floor, the family conference room. The reinforced doors slowly opened. More than 20 men were already seated around the massive table. Capos, financial directors, and senior operators responsible for the Carlos family's underground empire. Enzo sat among them, his expression particularly dark. Then Caius entered. With Albie handcuffed behind his back and still dressed in an oversized sleep shirt. The room instantly fell silent. Several executives exchanged startled glances. The moment Caius's cold gaze swept across them, every head lowered immediately, pretending they had seen absolutely nothing. No one commented. Caius took his seat at the head of the table. Then he dragged over a tall back chair and firmly deposited Albie into it. The height was deliberate. Albie sat directly at Caius's right side and, thanks to the elevated chair, slightly higher than every other executive in the room. "Begin!" Caius spoke calmly. He removed his leather gloves, revealing elegant hands with long, defined fingers. Then he turned his attention to the reports regarding international money laundering operations and weapons trafficking routes, as though nothing unusual were happening. Albie sat there like a ridiculous sculpture. At first, he entertained himself by glaring at Enzo. Unfortunately, endless spreadsheets, financial forecasts, and presentation slides proved stronger opponents than any mobster. Within 20 minutes, he was both starving and unbearably bored. His stomach growled. The sound wasn't loud. In the silence, it may as well have been an explosion. One of Caius's fingers paused briefly against a document. He didn't interrupt the discussion, didn't stop issuing orders regarding the next acquisition. Instead, he casually pulled a crystal fruit bowl toward himself. Inside were freshly picked strawberries from the estate greenhouse. Deep red, still dusted with droplets of moisture. Each one looked like a polished ruby. The sweet scent immediately reached Albie. He swallowed. Unfortunately, handcuffed people were not particularly effective at feeding themselves. With visible annoyance, he turned his head away and tried to ignore the fruit altogether. A moment later, something cool brushed against his lips. Albie froze. He turned sharply. Caius wasn't even looking at him. Those black eyes remained fixed on the financial reports displayed on the large screen. His voice stayed level and composed as he outlined plans for dealing with traders. "The East Dock transfer proceeds next week. Anyone unwilling to cooperate will be eliminated." At the same time, his right hand held a strawberry by its green stem. The fruit rested steadily against Albie's mouth, a silent command. Impossible to ignore. "Open." The word came quietly during a pause in the presentation. Only the two of them could hear it. Around the table, several executives visibly stiffened. They listened to their boss calmly discussing executions while simultaneously feeding a hostage strawberries. The contrast was so surreal it bordered on psychological warfare. Albie clenched his jaw. The scent of the fruit was maddening. "Don't force me to find another way to feed you, Albie." This time there was a faint rasp beneath Caius's voice. Dangerous, certain. Albie's heartbeat stumbled. The worst part was knowing Caius meant every word he said. Finally, with obvious humiliation, he opened his mouth and bit down on the strawberry. Sweet, chilled juice burst across his tongue. He bit harder than necessary. A drop of crimson juice escaped the corner of his mouth and slowly slid downward along pale skin toward the base of his throat. For the first time, Caius looked away from the reports. His gaze settled on that single drop of red. His throat moved once, subtly. Albie immediately grew wary. Under his watchful stare, Caius lifted his hand. Then, without hesitation, he brushed the pad of his thumb across Albie's lower lip. Slowly. The touch was warm and dry. The faint roughness of calloused skin grazed soft flesh, sending an involuntary shiver through Albie. Caius wiped away the strawberry juice, or at least that seemed to be the intention. Instead, his thumb lingered. Once. Then again. The crimson stain spread faintly across pale lips beneath the pressure of his touch. By the time he finally stopped, Albie's mouth looked flushed and vivid, like a rose blooming in the middle of the night. "Sweet?" The question emerged in a voice barely louder than a whisper. His eyes never left Albie's. Albie's breathing faltered. For the first time, a crack appeared in the defenses he had always believed were unbreakable. And it was caused not by violence, not by threats, but by something far more dangerous.